Howdy everyone, this is Dave, and we've got another Disney villain to talk about. Captain James Bartholomew Hook, from Disney's 18th animated feature film, Peter Pan. I was introduced to this just before the movie Hook came out, which I've watched a million times. Fox also had an animated series called Peter Pan and the Pirates, which aired at the same time, with Tim Curry voicing the man himself. So needless to say, I was getting Captain Hook overload at a critical point in childhood development. I blame this character as a major factor in why I've loved swords my entire life. Peter Pan was the last movie that Disney released through RKO Radio Pictures on February 5th, 1953. It's one of those movies that's been in and out of the vault several times, so when people saw it first may vary. The original Peter Pan, or The Boy Who Wouldn't Grow Up, was a play written by J.M. Barrie that premiered in London on December 27, 1904. Barrie later adapted the play into a book called Peter and Wendy in 1911. It is said that his version of Hook was based on Christopher Newport, a privateer that launched attacks on Spain, and later helped establish the first permanent English settlement at Jamestown. Disney's adaptation of Hook was voiced by Hans Conried, who also did the voice for George Darling in this movie. The captain is a refined and distinguished old codger, who's capable of commanding a bloodthirsty pirate crew. Which means that he's just as ruthless as any other Disney villain, and capable of some pretty heinous things. He's a towering presence, well-armed, experienced in combat, and has a thriving disregard for the well-being of others. He's got long black hair, and a thin handlebar mustache under his enormous nose. He has a long and liney face, with dark eyelids and bags under his eyes. He stunts a big hat with a feather, a red coat with gold lining, fancy shoes, and puff sleeves.
Look at the puffs!
Captain Hook also stays strapped, with a long sharp rapier, flintlock pistol, and of course, a curved hook on his left hand, which is badass. But I can't help but think of all of the unintentional accidents that one would have with such an attachment. Of all the Disney villains, I'd have to say that I sympathize with Hook the most. This guy is dealt a pretty gnarly card, and I am not jealous of his life whatsoever. But we'll get more into that later. Without further ado, here we go. The flick opens up establishing the Darling residence in Bloomsbury, London. Parents, George and Mary, with their children Wendy, John, and Michael. They have a nanny that's a St. Bernard named Nana. As always, books provide way more backstory, like George and Mary first meeting and how they found Nana in the park, and somehow come to the conclusion that she is going to act like an actual nanny. The movie doesn't bother explaining any of that to you, and you just accept that this dog has the wherewithal to monitor and take care of children. The adults are getting ready for a work party, and George is miffed because he can't find his cufflinks. The narrator introduces the children along with their feelings about Peter Pan. Mary and George are just like whatever about him. He's just a fairy tale that kids are into. Little do they realize that the children actually believe and are basically operating as a Peter Pan cult, placing him at the center of all of their games and activities, focusing on Peter Pan to the point of obsession. We see the boys reenacting epic battles and Wendy acting as the continuity czar, like reminding John that the hook should be on his left hand. Wendy is not only a true believer that is enabling her brothers, but the narrator states that she is the supreme authority on Peter Pan and all of his marvelous adventures. They are lost deep in the sauce, and this true belief is why Peter visits them, especially to hear the stories. George figures out what's going on under his roof at the worst time. He enters and discovers the Peter Pan mania in full swing.
That was swinging, man. Swinging? Swinging. That's good, right? Swinging's good.
They've hidden his cufflinks as buried treasure and used chalk to draw a treasure map on his shirt front. You can see the dysfunction arise in real time, as George's family doesn't take him seriously. Ignored, minimized, disrespected, take your pick. This causes him to lash out with yelling and brash decisions. He brings the hammer down hard, stating that this is the last night that Wendy is spending in the nursery, and it's time for her to grow the f*** up. During all of this madness, Nana is stuck in an endless loop of remaking beds and rebuilding blocks. Ultimately, she ends up as collateral damage, and George is faced with the fact that his family doesn't give a crap about him. Let's be real, we would all be rushing to the dog too. But of course, George makes it about him. Instead of realizing that he has a shitty relationship with his family and needs to work on it, he sees it as the last straw. Nana also has to be punished. She has her nanny title revoked and has to spend the rest of the night outside.
That's freaking awesome! Not. It's fucking dumb.
She's a good girl though. As the kids are being tucked in, John is flabbergasted that his dad doesn't believe in Peter Pan. Like his head is in his hands, contemplating that shit. Wendy requests to leave the window unlocked because he might come back. Mary's like, he? And Wendy starts going on about Peter Pan's shadow. In the book, it's actually Mary that sees Peter first. Nana grabs him by the shadow. He flies away, but the shadow stays. Mary then rolls it up and places it in a drawer. In the movie, it's Wendy who puts it away, leaving her mother to worry that she's lost her marbles.
Lost.
Lost what?
I've lost my marbles.
But she doesn't like the idea of Wendy seeing a shadow in the window either way, so naturally she leaves it unlocked. She asks George about it when they leave, but he doesn't seem to care about his daughter potentially seeing someone in her window, and begins spewing obnoxious sarcasm as they walk away. Peter and Tinkerbell watch from the rooftop and enter once the coast is cleared. The other kids are asleep, so they quietly look around for his shadow. Once they find it, the shadow isn't interested in conjoining with Peter, accelerating things into a chase and scuffle that awakens Wendy. She recognizes him immediately and starts talking. A lot. She rambles about finding the shadow and saving it, that he can't put it back on with a bar of soap, and that she will have to sew it back on. What if that doesn't work either? Do not sew thread into me. Peter can't get a word in until he rudely blurts out,
Girls talk too much.
Yes, girls talk to
Wendy is going to find throughout this adventure that Peter Pan is up to date on all of his certifications to be a tremendous douchebag, self-centered, cocky, and cruel. It won't make a difference on her opinion of him. I'm just saying for future reference. Wendy tells him that it's her last night in the nursery, and he's like, that means I won't be able to hear stories about myself that I can go back and tell the Lost Boys. I mean, they already go on adventures with you. I'm sure they see you in action, or I'm sure you at least brag about something cool you did immediately after you return home. Now you need extra content about yourself to keep them entertained? Peter's solution is to remove Wendy from her life in London and take her to Neverland, so that she doesn't have to grow up, and he can use her as the head of the propaganda machine to feed his ego and establish lore, whether it's true or not. Tinkerbell doesn't like Wendy, and it gets aggressive when she tries to get fresh with him.
Yoink.
Michael and John wake up and Peter sprinkles Tink's fairy dust on them, instructing to think of a happy thought in order to fly. They take off, second star to the right and straight on till morning, doing so on a spur of the moment, literally still dressed for bed. Absolutely no condition to be out flying around at night, going on adventures. They're aware of Neverland, and that it's an island filled with pirates, aboriginals, ferocious mermaids, and who knows what else. Depending on what rendition you're going with, various quadrants of Neverland could have vastly different climates. Walking in a jungle 1 minute, and then a snowy tundra the next. That's not even considering the plants and other creatures that you may encounter. Now I know this is shocking to hear, but a lot of adventures include peril. And the last thing that I would want to be wearing are slippers, a top hat, and a fucking nightie. Are you kidding me, John? Would you see Nathan Drake, Rick O'Connell, or Indiana Jones pulling that shit? As they approach Neverland, we zoom in on the Jolly Roger, anchored in Cannibal Cove. The pirates operate on a skeleton crew. We've got Mullins, Turk, Black Murphy, Bill Jukes, Wibbles, Starkey, and Skylights. These pirates are bored as hell and want nothing more than to set sail and leave the island for good. They'd much rather be out there wreaking havoc on the high seas, doing typical pirate-esque things. Turk says that he's almost forgotten how to slit a throat, and just hearing that, it's so sad. It's not good to let the skills of your employees stagnate like that. You can't have them perform any team-building exercises. Regrettably for them, they'll be stuck there for the foreseeable future, while Captain Hook tries to get even with Peter Pan, and it's taking much longer than anticipated. The airing of grievances and other hints like throwing knives at a drawing that says Captain, for example, shows that their patience is running thin. The first we see of Hook, he's sitting at a desk on the top deck, poring over a map of Neverland with a dual cigar holder. He's racking his brains, trying to figure out the secret to Peter Pan's hiding place. Judging by the size of the island and how long they've been at this, I'm wondering how they haven't searched every inch of the island by now. There are only a handful of established locations they can visit. So what's up with that? You can't be too sure about Neverland though, because everyone is so hostile. Beef is imminent between every faction. We see a drawing on the map depicting an indigenous person, but the tribe isn't mentioned in the movie, and we don't see any sign of them throughout. They certainly aren't in the book. Judging by this little drawing on the map, and then later how dirty the Indians were done, that's probably for the best. Hook states that they've combed Cannibal Cove, but my mind is filling in the blanks, and I'm rolling with the idea that the pirates went to war with the tribe and came out on top, now in control of the cove. In the book there is no shortage of pirates to be murdered, but there aren't nearly as many pirates in the movie, lending to the notion that a conflict with people that eat their enemies may explain why their numbers are low. On the other hand, Captain Hook rules his crew with a bloodthirsty fist. If you call this man your captain, then you better count your days, because it's only a matter of time before you mildly annoy him, or God forbid, ask a question, and you find yourself permanently relieved of duty. Hook must be responsible for more fatalities amongst his own men than we'll ever know. He has no qualms of disposing of any member of his crew, and that means he's cool with a variety of other methods, like walking the plank, keel hauling, marooning, running them through with his cold steel, getting creative with his hook, or as he says in the book, cast anchor, which I really like and I'm going to be using it. Or he could just shoot them the way he does skylights. Who gets blasted right away for singing a song? I'm sure he would have been perfectly fine with stopping if the captain ordered him to. He better chill or he's going to run out of men. Hook has come up with numerous ideas to get even with Peter Pan, but they all fail miserably. I'd say the failure is by his own doing, but honestly, Peter Pan's flying ability is so OP. And the times that he almost does get him are thwarted somehow. If anyone has a high likelihood to mess things up, then it's going to be his first mate, Mr. Smee, voiced by our boy Bill Thompson. He's super loyal, but it's a roll of the dice whether he's useful or not. In the heat of combat, friendly fire is on, and his buffoonery causes exponential grief. Smee is one of those henchmen that holds the title of second in command, but receives little to no respect from his subordinates. An object that does not make an appearance in the movie, that does in other Peter Pan media, is Mr. Smee's sword, Johnny Corkscrew.
Aye, he got us. Johnny Corkscrew, let the air in and the blood out.
Which sounds like a porn star name. He likes to use all these cute and creative words with his Irish accent, like I'm gonna tickle him with Johnny Corkscrew. And he even named it that because he likes to, and I quote, wriggle it in the wound.
Jesus.
We learn that during their first encounter, Pan jokingly severs Hook's left hand from his body, as a prank. Now let that just settle in for a moment. Some feral child who sees everything as a game cuts through the skin of your wrist and severs the tendons, blood vessels, and all that good stuff until the blade hits the bone in your wrist. Then the hand that you've had your entire life just comes off. While you're trying to stave off the bleeding and utter shock of what just happened, the little prick flies over and feeds it to a monster.
And something even more fucking diabolical.
Captain Hook most likely had to watch as that thing swallowed a part of him. You know Pete was laughing the entire time he was doing it too. Such a funny game. Then imagine that after this extremely disturbing experience, you notice that the croc is actively following you around because you were so delicious that now it wants to hang out around you until it can catch you slipping and get the rest. We are shown what effect this has on Captain Hook. It gets even more psychological because at some point the croc swallowed a clock, and the ticking is audible when nearby. He obviously has PTSD, and is understandably petrified whenever he hears the tick-tock approaching. Captain Hook in the original story brings up the clock thing. During one of their numerous encounters, he ended up tricking the crocodile into swallowing a clock, not by accident, but kind of like an insurance policy. That way he would at least have a chance when the croc was sneaking up on him. As soon as he heard the ticking, he knew that he had to get moving. The psychological part is thinking about what will happen when the clock runs out, and you won't hear the ticking anymore, representing time, and how eventually it runs out.
And takes us all.
Mullins spots Pan and the Darlings, and Hook orders them to man the cannons. Peter draws fire and tells Tink to take the others to the island. She rushes at ludicrous speed, and the others can't keep up.
Ludicrous speed! Go!
They've gone to Plaid!
She flies into the hideout and warns the Lost Boys that Peter wants them to execute Order 66 on an intruder. The Lost Boys oblige and throw everything they've got at Wendy. Peter comes through and saves her. They're all confused and try to figure out what happened. Tink's high treason is brought up and she is without any remorse for what she's done. So Peter banishes her. Toodles, the old guy who lost his marbles and Hook, is featured heavily in the original story. He's actually the one who shoots Wendy down, hitting her with an arrow, to which the thimble that represents a kiss saves her, which was a good thing because if Wendy would have died, then Peter would have just left the area and never came back, leaving her body to the elements, which he had apparently done before. I'm telling you, the book is a lot more graphic, in pretty much every way. That version of Neverland is a place I never want to visit. It's just so hostile. Every faction is trying to de-life one another. What gave me the heebie-jeebies was the depiction of Indians running around draped in scalps of various pirates and Lost Boys. The first history video I made for this channel was about a man who was scalped as a young boy. And when that detail was mentioned, my mind immediately flashed to how horrific it is, and the aftermath of it happening to the members of the Lost Boys. Brutal! Being scalped doesn't necessarily mean that the victim dies, and these kids don't grow up. So imagine little scalped boys running around for eternity. It's just gruesome. Their only way out is to leave Neverland and grow up, or to get killed. Man, this is supposed to be for children. What's even more messed up is that Peter Pan has a tendency to change sides during the heat of battle. So imagine you're being led into a conflict, only to have your leader turn on you and start scalping one of his own guys. The book version of Peter Pan has absolutely no problems with maiming and disfiguring the Lost Boys. For example, they all get their own tree to live in, and they must fit. If they don't, then Peter alters them. I know I'm doing a lot of air quotes, but there's some messed up verbiage going on. Then they must make an effort to keep fitting in it, so the alterations are ongoing. Back to the movie. Pan offers to give them a tour of the island, but everyone has their own plans of what they want to do, so they split up. Peter and Wendy head off to see the mermaids, while John, Michael, and the Lost Boys go to see the Indians. So when I watched this on Disney Plus, I got a disclaimer at the beginning acknowledging that this movie has stereotypes in it and whatnot. It had been a very long time since I watched it, and I genuinely couldn't think of why they would need to have something like that. Then after viewing from an adult perspective, let's just say that the disclaimer was not unfounded. All of this went way over my head as a kid, but Captain Hook totally uses a slur that I don't remember ever hearing before. It's definitely not as bad as the book, which simply refers to the natives as that slur exclusively throughout. But the main thing here is just how they were drawn, man. Why do they gotta look like this? Just about every native in this movie looks hit. We see a couple instances where Indians are drawn perfectly fine, like the chief's daughter Tiger Lily. She looks normal. The Lost Boys are easily captured by the tribe and are taken to the chief. He tells them that Tiger Lily has been kidnapped, and he is not f***ing around with them. This guy is pissed, talking about burning their asses at the stake and calling it a day. Typical girl dad behavior. Peter asks Wendy if she would like to meet the mermaids. She's like, hell yeah, and then he immediately bails on her. Wendy struggles to follow him, while he acts like she doesn't exist. If Wendy was oblivious to all of the red flags before, this should be the wake-up call. That's why she has a hard time flying here, because she has to be thinking of a happy thought in order to do so. And he's presenting her with scenarios where she is straight up not having a good time. Like, who's gonna be happy seeing their crush risen up some finned bitches? You would either need to have the mental fortitude of Professor X, or be a complete narcissist that is dissociated from reality in order to use this flying ability effectively. Too much hinges on the happy thought thing. Peter is egotistical and forces himself to have fun, which makes him an expert at flying. He laughs at everything, whether it's joyful or macabre, taking delight in the suffering of others. The book says that Peter saw and forgot many tragedies, and when he approaches a fight with Captain Hook, someone that everyone is afraid of, he does so not with a sinking feeling, but a feeling of gladness. All of these factor into him being able to bust the move out at any given moment. I don't know about you, but my ADHD ass would find that really difficult. My thoughts and mood are too untrustworthy to rely on this ability. Seeing these mermaids produces a happy thought for Peter, so of course he's drawn to them, leaving Wendy stuck on a rock. She calls out, but getting their attention was not the move to make, because it is on sight when she is detected. Peter is no help, stranded on a rock with nowhere to go, at the mercy of the jealous sirens. They attempt to pull her into the water, and when that doesn't work, they start splashing her. Peter laughs hysterically. He only interferes when Wendy is forced to defend herself. Then he starts gaslighting her, saying it was only fun, which is bullshit because one of the mermaids admits premeditation.
We were only trying to drown her.
You see?
Wendy starts to tell Peter to go fuck himself, but is cut short because danger approaches. He spots Captain Hook, Mr. Smee, Tiger Lily, and of course the Crocodile, all making their way to Skull Rock. Peter and Wendy follow them to see what's going on, completely unaware of how serious it is for John, Michael, and the Lost Boys. They set Tiger Lily on a rock and tie an anchor around her. Hook gives an ultimatum. She tells him where Peter Pan's hiding place is, or she drowns when the tide comes in. He reminds her that drowning is one of the ways that her spirit will never find peace in the afterlife, stating that there is no path through water to the happy hunting ground, hoping that will add enough pressure to make her talk.
Come on, bitch. Where's your stud?
I don't know where Mike is.
Wrong answer.
Lay off me, you bastard!
So not only is he offing her, but he's screwing her over for eternity as well. That sounds like a good way to get haunted. Not only will he have the croc to contend with, but a specter of the chieftain's daughter. Something I wonder is how many times do you think Hook's done this to members of the tribe that he's captured before? Peter pulls out some ventriloquism and lures Hook away from the boat. His stealth is maxed out as he can just levitate above ground. Once Hook is distracted, Peter quickly flies inside the cave and begins talking to Mr. Smee, putting on his best Captain Hook impression, telling him to release Tiger Lily and take her back to her people. Smee does so, and Hook is bamboozled by the sight of his first mate doing the literal opposite of what they came there to do. He commands him to put her back.
Well, put it back.
But then he hears Smee talking to the voice and investigates, finding Peter to be spewing all sorts of wild and contradictory rhetoric.
When you return to the ship, tell the whole crew to themselves.
As he raises his hook, ready to cast anchor in his face, Wendy calls out, and the split-second reaction time saves him from getting a unique piercing. Hook finds himself in a very precarious situation, with his adversary flying all over the place, unable to memorize his attack patterns. If anyone were to fight Hook one-on-one with both feet on the ground, then I have no doubt that he would mop the floor with them. Unfortunately, everything that he is as a man of combat is thrown out the window when it comes to this flying devil. Hook takes a swing at Peter, but he swishes around, lifts up his coat and grabs his pistol, then gives it to Mr. Smee and tells him to try his luck. Smee goes for it, but it's impossible to lock in. He flies right in front of Hook, and the befuddled Smee, without question, aims that bad boy right at him and fires.
Hold it, you fool! No! No!
Peter is sadistic as hell for this. He had options, where he could have distracted them, stealthily cut Tiger Lily free, and fly away undetected, or he could have just easily offed these guys at any moment. Just silently float over with the dagger out and give him a little. Instead, he decides to toy with them, like he's played this level 30 times already and is just messing around. This is literally life and death, and he's laughing and having a great time with it. Captain Hook almost gets headshotted with his own weapon by his own first mate. It all happens pretty fast, but basically Hook would have been fine if he stayed where he was. But nonetheless, he falls back head first. He would rather dash his brains on the rocks below over having them paint the cave wall. However, it all happens so quick that everyone just assumes that Hook's dome was blown wide open, and he's now pooling up in a crevice somewhere. Peter even appears to believe it this time, having a moment of silence for his fallen rival. Despite what everyone thinks, the captain did survive. He's about to run Peter through with the cold steel, but Smee ruins it. The second time he's had a surprise attack thwarted in this fight alone. If he were able to get to Peter without anyone else around, then I think he would have a chance. Because man, once you're on Flyboy's radar, all you can do is try to survive. Peter gives Captain Hook hell, making a mockery of him and disrespecting his hat, which he must have 1,000 spares because that is the first thing to go when the swashbuckling starts. And it's a liability if anything. Pan even has the physical power to block and override Hook's attack and get the upper hand with just a knife. So not only is the kid quick, but he's strong too. Hook's hanging over a ledge with Peter ridiculing him, reducing the guy to tears and empty threats. Then, as if it can't get any worse, the Croc shows up. Peter plays up the psychological warfare as the ticking gets closer, asking the Croc if it likes codfish. It launches an attack, and the only person that can help him is Smee, who is actually negative help, and in fact does more bad than good. The rest of this part is various sequences of Hook screaming in horror as he is almost eaten alive by his greatest fear. He ends up swimming away with the ravenous beast in hot pursuit. Peter saves Tiger Lily before she drowns, and they return her to the tribe where they have an interesting ceremony. Hook must have just swam back to the ship himself, because the next scene is at the Jolly Roger, with the Croc circling outside his window, licking its chops at the thought of how good that dude was tasting earlier. Hook is recovering, and once again, Smee adds to the misery, bludgeoning him with a hammer and pouring boiling hot water on his feet. Anyways, Smee brings up some gossip that he heard from the crew, that Peter Pan had banished Tinkerbell because of Wendy. In reality, I want to know how they know who Wendy is, especially by name. Hook only saw her from far away through his spyglass, and she was hidden the entire time at Skull Rock. She did shout to warn Peter, but nobody acknowledged her. This is the best news that Hook has heard in a long time, because Tinkerbell acts as a sentinel that is indisputably loyal to Peter Pan, and likely a huge reason why revenge plots always fail. Nobody knows Peter better than her, so Hook devises a plan, sending Smee to capture Tinkerbell and bring her back to him. After doing so, Smee comes to the conclusion that he needs to get hammered before this very important meeting.
Ooh, whose mans is this?
Who mans is this?
Family.
He tells Tink that he and the crew will be leaving Neverland the next day, and they won't be coming back. He wants her to tell Peter that he's got no hard feelings toward him, and plays up Tinkerbell's jealousy by mentioning Wendy. He really hams it up and shows sympathy. In the book there's a quote that sticks out, stating that Hook was never more sinister than when he was being polite. And that rings true here. He offers to Shanghai Wendy, which means that he would abduct her and take her out to sea with them. This manipulates her into telling him where the Lost Boys' hideout is on the map, even making him pass a vibe check beforehand, having him promise not to lay a hand or hook on him. He does so, and after she tells him, he locks her up in a lantern.
Son of a bitch!
The crew assembles, and they make their way to Hangman's Tree. So during the racially insensitive ceremony with the Indians, Wendy wasn't allowed to participate because she's a girl, and this other lady kept materializing between her and any fun, ordering her to get firewood. Like she's a guest, chill out, bitch! On top of that, she sees that Peter is obviously occupied with Tiger Lily, and instead of putting up with this shit, she decides to leave by walking. No happy thoughts here. This seems to be the last straw, because later on when they return to the hideout, she is already there, completely over the trip and wants to go home. She red pills the entire Lost Boys faction by telling them about what having a mother is like, and they elect to go back with the Darlings. Peter tells them that if they leave, then they can never come back, but he assumes that they aren't leaving. They crawl out of the hideout and land directly in the clutches of the pirates and taken away, leaving Peter cornered and at the mercy of his foe. Captain Hook and Mr. Smee agree that it would be more humane to slit his throat and let him gargle and choke on his own blood. But since Captain Hook is the pinnacle of decency, honor, and morality, and the fact that he gave his word not to lay a finger or hook on him, he resorts to leaving explosives, disguised as a present, timed to detonate at 6 o'clock in the morning. Possibly the biggest difference that I noticed was that throughout this movie, we see numerous clocks. But in the book, the only way for them to tell time on the island is to find the crocodile and wait until the clock inside sounds off at the top of the hour. They return to the ship where Captain Hook gives the Darlings and the Lost Boys a chance to join his crew. If they don't want to, then they will be forced to walk the plank. Wendy is confident that Peter Pan will save them, but that's when he discloses the plan to blow him up. Peter isn't self-aware whatsoever. Why would a girl give you a present after you acted like an asshole and a douchebag? Those kids left the house dressed ready for bed. When did she have time, in all of this, to not only find and obtain a present, but also a box, wrapping paper, and a pink ribbon, and then wrap it? Come on, man. Oh, look who visited. Tinkerbell breaks out of the lantern and shows up just in time to grab the box and flee. But that's when a massive explosion occurs that can be seen from everywhere on the island. Somehow Peter and Tink survive after being at ground zero, which I'll say is a lot more devastating than her drinking poison like in the book.
She drank the poison that Captain Hook intended for Peter Pan.
Tinkerbell!
Fuck 'em.
Onlookers from the ship think that Peter's dead. Wendy speaks on behalf of everyone by telling Captain Hook to kindly get bent. Wendy walks the plank first, and when she drops, there's no splash. The crew is perplexed. Bill Jukes suggests to Starkey that the ship is damned, and the concerned employee approaches upper management and simply voices what everyone's thinking.
No splash, Captain. I'll give you a splash.
Peter makes his presence known, and they start fighting. He frees the Lost Boys so they can take their last stand in the crow's nest. Captain Hook gets bested by Peter at every turn. As I mentioned before, I think Captain Hook would be formidable if you squared up to him. But how can you block attacks that you don't even know exist? Like you're fighting, and then your opponent launches himself back, bounces off the ropes like a super catapult, smashes both feet into your face, and you go soaring through the air and crashing into something heavy that knocks you the fuck out. You can't calculate for stuff like that. Mr. Smee was visibly shaken by the sight of Peter Pan. Ghost or not, he decides it's time to dip, ready to leave it all behind. Peter cuts the rope ladder holding all the pirates, and Michael crushes Turk's head with a cannonball. They fall in the boat with Mr. Smee. The unconscious big guy lands on top, incapacitating them for the rest of the movie, leaving Captain Hook the last man standing. Captain Hook starts calling Peter out for flying away all the time, and how it's a real bitch move, that if he actually stood his ground and fought a man-to-man, then he would end up flying away like a coward, because otherwise he'd be dead. Valid. Pan's ego gets the better of him, and high up on a yard, he gives him his word that he'll fight without flying, and with one arm behind his back. Hook quickly shows that punk ass he ain't shit without flying, and throws his dagger aside. Just as things are about to get interesting, Peter pulls the Jolly Roger flag over Hook and ties him up in it. He catches his sword and points it at him. Hook starts crying again, and Peter makes him shout out that he's a codfish. After the humiliation ritual, Peter begins crowing in victory. Our dear captain takes the opportunity to cast anchor in his back, but of course Wendy warns him, leaving Peter just enough time to react and send Captain Hook falling into the open mouth of the crocodile. He ends up getting skidded across the water like a rock into the horizon, with the croc and the crew in pursuit. Similar to how the last encounter went, it seems like this is a pattern. In the book, Captain Hook and Peter's final battle is rather anticlimactic. He basically has nothing on him except to criticize his form for a split second before he falls into the water and is eaten by the crocodile.
Good form, old man.
Then that's it. He's gone. All the rest of the pirates are either killed or captured by the Indians. Smee and Starkey are the only ones that make it out. Smee wanders around, telling people that he was the only person that Captain Hook was afraid of. The rest of the book wraps up with the Darling children and some of the Lost Boys returning home. The Lost Boys stay with them and eventually forget how to fly and become average people that grow up and get jobs. Mrs. Darling allows Wendy to go back to Neverland for 1 week out of the year to help Peter with his spring cleaning. By the time that year rolls around and he returns, Wendy is flabbergasted to find out that he has forgotten all about Captain Hook and Tinkerbell, stating that he forgets them after he kills them, and that fairies don't live long, and there have been many other fairies. She waited all year thinking about how that adventure had been so remarkable. But Peter had to start forgetting about it because so many new adventures were happening. He shows up again the next year, but after that he doesn't come back until Wendy is much older, married, and has a daughter named Jane. Peter has a melty when he finds out that Wendy has grown up, but by the end of the story, they have this unspoken arrangement where the daughters of Wendy will go with Peter and have all these experiences. Jane leaves with him, and then Jane's daughter will do the same thing in a couple decades, and so on and so forth. Kinda weird to think about having like your whole lineage have their first crush on the same person. But whatever, I guess. It's not like the author was free of controversy or anything. Back to the movie. Pan and the Lost Boys claim the pirate ship, and Tinkerbell's magic fairy dust allows the ship to turn gold and fly. The clock strikes 11 p.m., and the Darlings are just arriving home from the party. After some time has passed, Mr. Darling realizes that he's overreacted. He just says something like, "You know how I get with these things." Dude, nobody likes when you get that way. So why don't you just show some self-control and some consistency and stop doing it? They just get over it and the issue is never resolved. They find Wendy passed out next to the open window. They awaken her and she starts going off about their adventure without any filter, and her parents think she's nuts. Then clouds form to look like the Jolly Roger and fly across the moon while George says he remembers seeing that ship when he was a little kid. At the very beginning of the movie, in the first line, the narrator states that this has all happened before, and it will all happen again. How many times has Pan brought random children to Neverland? Did this happen to George as a boy and he just forgot about it when he became an asshole? Was he once a lost boy? Who knows? The end. Captain Hook is a murderous cutthroat and traumatized individual. I can't help but feel bad for him because of how slow and torturous his existence is. He keeps getting bested by Peter Pan and is slowly being taken apart. In the back of his mind, he knows that at some point he will probably die by being eaten by the crocodile. The guy never wins, and it can be hard to take him seriously with how much of a laughingstock that Pan makes him. Captain Hook saw numerous appearances in other media, from House of Mouse to games to other adaptations not related to Disney. He's still getting recognition, and I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. There's a whole other sequel that Disney made in the early 2000s called Return to Neverland, but I'm not going to go into all that in this video. Disney experimented a lot with those cheesy sequels that were straight to DVD back in the day, and they weren't really that bad, but they weren't really that good either. Even my young pre-internet mind knew that too much time had passed between these films, and they couldn't be seen as anything other than a cash grab. Alright everyone, that's all I've got for this video. Thanks for watching. If you like my stuff, feel free to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, my friends, have a good one.